Good afternoon, Amsterdam. Thank you so much for joining us, and those of you on the live stream as well. Thanks for following along. This is Subir. He is the Firebase Predictions engineering manager.
Hi, everyone, and this is Jumana. She's our product manager for Firebase Predictions.
Awesome. So this is actually our second time in Amsterdam, and we're really thrilled to be here. You may or may not know, today is Halloween in the US. So per US traditions, trick or treat.
Oh, a prediction, we just like a treat.
We'll go with the treat, because that's what I have prepared. All right, I hope you had a little bit of coffee with your lunch, because we're going to need you to do a little bit of math. So act awake, please. Think of a number. Oh, and if you know this one, just follow along. Don't shout the answer. Enjoy the trip. Think of a number between 1 and 10. Do you have it? Got it? Real? OK. Multiply it by 2. Got that? Add 8 to it. Divide it by 2. Now, subtract the original number. You're still all with me? You should have a number between 1 and 26.
All right, and that's the number of letters in the English alphabet. So pick a letter that corresponds to that number. So if you had 1, it's A, 2, it's B, and so on. Got it? Awesome. Now pick a country that begins with that letter. Good? Perfect. Now let's go to the next letter in the alphabet. So if you had A, now it's B. OK? Yeah.
So basically, sorry.
And now pick an animal that starts with that letter, the new letter that you have, and now hold on to that.
So if your number was 1, you would have picked Austria, and then you would have picked B, and you would have picked a bat. And now, Subir is going to make a prediction about what all of you thought about. Are you ready?
All right. And I'm going to predict that most of us picked an elephant from Denmark.
How many people picked an elephant from Denmark? Raise your hands, please. Don't be shy. There you go. Good numbers. And you know what's so amazing? There are no elephants in Denmark. I've checked. Check with Denmark. There are no elephants. Maybe in a couple of zoos. But yeah, we all thought of an elephant from Denmark. Look at that. So was that really magic? Not really. The majority of people, it felt magical, which is what we want in most cases when we're doing user experiences, right? But most people, it turns out, when you ask them to think of a country with the letter D, will think of Denmark. We're in Western Europe. You were extra primed to think of Denmark. When you ask them to think of an animal with the letter E, they will think of an elephant. Some people think of emus. If you thought of an emu, we should be friends. Come back and find me after the talk. But emus and elephants aside, what we're here to talk about today is really predictable user behavior, right? How do we use behavioral patterns to take advantage of that and enhance our apps, enhance how we do our user experiences, reduce our churn, increase our revenue? And what can we do with that? To just bring that into a more tangible example, let's make a game. What do you think about that?
Let's do it.
I've called our elephant Mr. Ellie. He's going to be with us for half an hour. Might as well get on first-name basis. Are you OK with that?
Yeah, I like that.
Mr. Ellie. Sounds good. So let's build a game for Mr. Ellie.
So sounds like a fun game. Mr. Ellie is on a mission to collect bananas all over the world. He's going to leave Denmark and go on a cruise. And looks like a fun game, Jumana, and I'll play this game, but I'm a little worried about this game already.
What worries you?
You know why? You know the funnel of pain for most game developers? Mm-hmm. You know, within the first 24 hours, these developers tend to lose half of their active users.
Do you have to remind us?
And by the end of the week, you tend to lose another half of those users.
OK.
And guess what?
It's looking pretty grim, man.
By the end of 30 days, you tend to lose another half of those users.
I get it. It's looking pretty sad for Mr. Ellie. I'm sad for him, too. So, but I am product manager. And are there other product managers in the room? Yeah,
quite a few.
Hello. Thank you for coming. If you tell us that somebody's going to leave our app, we might be able to come up with some growth strategies or some retention strategies and test them out and figure out how to keep users in our app. The trick, though, Subir, is you have to tell me who's going to leave before they leave, because it's easier for me to retain users I already have than it is to try to acquire a whole bunch of new users. So what can you do?
I think I can do that. I'm glad you asked this question, because That's exactly the idea behind Firebase Predictions, to enable machine learning on and identify patterns in user behavior so that we can predict these events in the future. We're really excited to introduce this feature to you, so let's dig into this. All right. So if you're already using Firebase and you're logging your app event data with Google Analytics for Firebase, you've done all the hard work needed to take advantage of predictions. All you have to do is go to the Firebase console and enable predictions for your application data. Predictions will now start giving you these actionable insights so that you can target your users and strategize how you want to reach and grow your app.
So I just want that to sink in for a minute here, because this is extremely powerful. We've practiced this a lot of times, and I'm still very excited every time the slide comes up. Because now, with no intervention and no work on your part, you can reuse the same set of data that you're already logging to look at the past, to look into the future. And you can take advantage of Google machine learning in your app with no effort on your part. This idea of democratizing machine learning for the majority of developers, especially smaller developers, is really very exciting to me. And let's dig a little deeper into what we do. So basically, at its heart, this is a supervised learning problem. So the first thing we need to do is actually come up with examples to teach the model what it is exactly that we want it to learn. So we take the last 100 days of user activity, and we reserve the last 7 days, and we call that a labeling window, meaning we look at it and see what actually happened. And we give labels to the users: churner, spender, sharer, etc. And then we take the rest of that historic time period and kind of generate features. And that's learning the behaviors, grouping the events that have happened during that period into a meaningful fashion. We both generate training and evaluation holdout data. So what that means is that we're capable of generating all sorts of fun statistics about how good our predictions are doing, including accuracy, precision, recall, and all that stuff. And we expose some of these, like accuracy, to you later inside the UI. So both the training and the holdout data, it is fed into a neural network structure using TensorFlow. And what we then ask the model to do is take the entire historic period of events and then generate labels for the upcoming 7 days. So what is going to happen over the next 7 days? Once we're sure that the quality of the prediction is good enough, we write it to the Firebase Predictions backend. What that means is that you have it available to you to use in remote configuration so that you can customize your in-app experience based on what the users predicted to do. You can send notifications to predicted groups of users. You can also run A/B experiments to figure out how to optimize the experience or what's the best growth or retention or revenue strategy for predicted user groups. So let's dig a little bit deeper into what do you get out of default predictions.
Yes, so out of the box, if you enable Firebase Predictions for your app, you get two very important sets of predictions. And the first one is around churn. Now, these are the users who were recently active within your app, but are predicted to not come back to your app in the next 7 days. We give you a prediction for churn and for not churn, users who will most likely come back to your app in the next 7 days. We also show you the percentage of users from your active pool which are about to churn. And you might see that these percentages might not align to 100, and that's because our models cannot predict the data for some users. Some users are still new to us, we are still learning, etc. You also see the absolute number of users you'll be targeting if you use the option to target these users. So the next set of predictions is around spenders. We will tell you which users are likely to spend within your app in the next 7 days, and which users are likely not to spend within your app. Again, these percentages won't align to 100. And then you see all the risk tolerance sliders. So let's talk about that. So every prediction comes with a risk tolerance slider, right? And what it allows you is to change and tell us how many false positives you're willing to accept when you target users. So when I made the prediction for elephant from Denmark, some of us did not pick that, right? And the users who didn't were the false positives. Now, by changing this slider, you can actually tell us how few or how many false positives you want to include, depending on the way you're strategizing to target these users. So let's take an example, right? Like, let's say you want to offer a new in-app purchase and you want to send notifications to your spend users. It's OK to take a high-risk profile in this case, because even if this notification reaches some users who are not likely to spend, it's still OK, and your spenders will be covered, and no harm done giving this option. But if you want to offer something for free, like to bring all those users who are about to churn, gain their attention back, you want to be very sure that these users are very, very likely to be churning away. So you can choose a low-risk profile. And we'll show you the percentages and the number of users when you target these users.
So the nice thing about the risk profiles actually is you can specify them every time you're taking an action. So I'm sending a notification, I'm willing to accept 30% false positives, I'm giving free battle axes, I'm gonna accept only 5% false positives in my prediction. All these numbers are pre-generated, and so when you're using them in the UI, they're available for use. The second thing that we expose to you is the overall accuracy. So after a certain amount of time, in each of the pieces of the UI that you see behind us, which is called a prediction card, at the bottom of it, you will see a little accuracy graph. When you tap on that, we expose to you how did our predictions do for the past 14 days. So if you hover over it, it'll tell you the percentage of the predictions that came true. So we evaluate which ones that we predicted to churn actually churn, which ones that we predicted to not churn did not churn, and sum it all up and provide you with an overall accuracy metric. So let's talk a little bit more about how can you actually use predictions inside of your apps.
Yeah. So let's go back to our basic sets of predictions that are available, right? Like we have this churn card. We see that 36% of users are about to churn. Ouch. We have the risk tolerance slider. So Jumana, how can you use this card in order to make our Mr. Ellie app grow?
Well, I know that in our game, at level 4, Mr. Ellie does this lovely dance. It really enhances people's emotional connection to the app. And I know most people, if they reach level 4, they probably don't leave.
Okay.
So I could, and this is data that I'm already logging, say, for example, using user property into my user analytics, Google Analytics for Firebase. So I could use that and define a remote configuration to help more people reach level 4. So for example, I can say that if this user group is predicted to churn, and they also have not reached level 4, then I'm going to change the default difficulty for the game server side to easy instead of medium. This way, I'm not affecting the experience of the majority of my user base, but I'm doing something very targeted to those who are going to churn, because I think that's going to help them stay in the app if they get to experience that moment of joy at level 4.
That sounds like a good strategy. All right, so we know our app has in-app purchases. We've been logging those events, so we get this nice prediction for spend. And we see 22% of our users are likely to spend in the next 7 days, so good for you. How can we use this data to increase our revenue or increase our user base?
So a couple of ways we could use that to increase revenue. One, for example, I could use it with the brand new Firebase A/B testing to figure out which variant, like which in-app purchases I should offer. I could do 2 variants, for example, and offer an in-app purchase at a lower value or a more expensive in-app purchase, and see which one performs better, and only target this towards people who are likely to spend. So my spenders, I try to get give them more value and engage them more and improve my revenue by showing them the more expensive variant. And again, I A/B test it so that I have a way to actually validate what strategy is actually the best strategy.
Sounds good.
The other way we could do it is to use the non-spend prediction to, for example, enable hybrid monetization in my game. So at the end of each level, I could, for people who are predicted to not spend with a low-risk profile, so no more than 5% false positives, I want to show them using AdMob a rewarded video ad at the end of each level. And this way, I'm not affecting, again, the user experience for most people who are going to spend, but I'm introducing safely a hybrid monetization strategy into my game.
Awesome. Cool. So let's talk about one of my favorite features in Firebase Predictions, and I think this is a really powerful tool. Firebase Predictions allows you to create a custom prediction for any conversion event within your app. As developers, you know which are the most important events and moments in your app journey, right? Like in our game, level 4 is a good milestone to log. So what you can do is just log that event with Google Analytics for Firebase, and then go to the console and create a prediction. All you have to do is give the prediction a name and tell us if you're interested in users who are likely to hit that event in 7 days or likely not to hit that event in the next 7 days. And that's it. Now, Firebase Predictions will create this prediction for you, and you can target users for the specific prediction, which is very unique to your app. Now, in this case, we see the prediction is for social engagement, and we want to see if the users will share or have the share event in the next 7 days. So I'm guessing you plan to use this in the Mr. Ellie game?
You guessed right. But he's cheating. He's seen the slides before. So for example, think that there's maybe a very special moment where Mr. Ellie encounters an emu in the game. I can introduce then a more aggressive sharing UI and say, share this with your friends, but only show that piece of UI to people who are predicted to share. This way, I'm not cluttering the experience with a lot of pop-ups and invitations to do activities, and only showing them to people who are likely to engage with them. I'm not missing out on the word of mouth from the social butterflies in the game, but also I'm not pushing UI on every single user inside the game.
Yeah. Awesome. So we've had Firebase Predictions available to our alpha partners for a while, and we've been taking their feedback, figuring out if our model quality is good, and they've been analyzing the results and doing some tests in their own way. And we have some success stories to share. So I'll start with Halfbreak. And this is something that Francis also highlighted in his keynote today. Halfbreak used the churn prediction in their popular app, Dan the Man, and it resulted in a retention rate boost for about 20%. Now, let's follow the steps on what made Halfbreak get the success. So as I said earlier, all they had to do first was go to the console and enable predictions for their app data. They've been logging their events in Firebase Analytics already, so it was all ready for them. Now, the time it takes to produce a prediction for an event depends on the variety of other events you're logging and the volume of events. Our pipelines run every 24 hours. So if you have a new event or new data coming in, it will be incorporated in the model quality every 24 hours. So once the predictions are ready, you get an email which has details on which predictions are ready, what are the accuracy numbers, how to target users, and see these details from the console. So next step is to go to the console. And in Halfbreak's case, they chose to use it to target users. So as soon as you click that, you see the options to either use remote config or notifications. Now, Halfbreak decided to use remote config, and they went to this screen to create a remote config parameter. They did something like this, created a variable for will churn. They were interested in users who were about to churn, and then they did publish. Now, as you know, once you publish with remote config, that parameter is available to all your app installations in real time when they do the next remote config fetch. And this is a code snippet from the client side. So as you can see, if the will churn parameter value is true, we are granting a gift. And that's something very similar to what Halfbreak did. What did it look to the end users? Something like that. They see this nice banner to the users who are about to churn, and most likely these users click play because it looks very tempting.
I would.
Yeah. And it's amazing how such a small change led to an increase of 20% in the 7-day user retention.
Yeah, I mean, I think that bears repeating here, that for the amount of work that really it takes to incorporate predictions into your app, it's really, the upside is really worth it.
Yeah.
I know we've been talking a lot about games and game partners, but that just so happened that during alpha, most of our partners were game developers. But the spend predictions will work for any game that has habitual spend. So if you, for example, is a language app that has habitual spend and multiple opportunities to spend and do in-app purchases, this will work really great for you as well. If you have a single spend event ever in the lifetime of a user, it might not work as well. But churn will work for everyone. So talking about revenue, we have a couple of examples where partners were able to optimize revenue using predictions. And the first one is Rockbite. So Rockbite has this great game, sci-fi game called Deep Town. And what the team has come up to us with is the following challenge. They've been running A/B tests for a while right now inside their app, trying to figure out what's the best layout for their digital store. And every time they run an A/B test, it comes back inconclusive because they run it on a portion of the population, and they're not quite sure why it's working one way or another. So when we told them about predictions, they decided to use the well-spent predictions in order to figure out, if there's something to the fact whether they're going to spend or not spend, that the layout of the store could optimize. And indeed, there was. So for the spender group, they put these rare chests on top of their digital store, and they observed a 25% increase in revenue in that predicted group. They repeated the experiment with the non-spender group and put crystals and stuff like that on top. That allowed people maybe to continue playing the game for a little longer. And they saw an increase in spend also in this group. And based on the results, they rolled that change out permanently. And now any new users that come, depending on how they get classified, will see a different layout of the store. And as they move through their user journey and their status changes, the layout of the store for them will change as well. Another partner that saw some good results in optimizing revenue is Concrete. And what they did is they actually used predictions, the spend predictions, to optimize when and where they show ads inside of their app. So they actually ended up optimizing their in-app purchase by 21% by tuning the frequency and when and where ads are shown, whom they're shown for. So we're hoping you'll be able to try some of these things out and see if you can produce similar results.
All right, so in summary, if you haven't been logging events with Google Analytics for Firebase, you should start doing that now so that we have the data to create these predictions for you. Also, please log your conversion events because I think you'll be interested to get insights on what's happening with those events with your users. And then go to the Firebase console and enable the predictions for your data.
I think it's worth mentioning here that you can mark as conversion either default events that Firebase logs, like share and writing a review and things like that, but also your own important milestones inside the app. You can mark them as conversions. And just like that, with a click of a button, you get Google ML as part of the team, helping and augmenting your team, whether or not you have data scientists on staff. I think it helps augment your team's ability to make objective decisions about their product.
Yeah.
And remember that you basically then get it in the rest of the Firebase ecosystem. In this beta, you get it in remote configurations for customizing your in-app experience. You get it in notifications, so you can send targeted notifications to predicted groups. And the most powerful integration really is to do a combination of remote configuration, A/B testing, and predictions. And this way, you can basically iterate over your various growth strategies and figure out what really drives revenue higher, what really reduces churn for you before it happens ahead of time.
And these are really powerful insights, and we are very excited to see how you are going to determine and how you're going to use different strategies to grow your app, either in terms of user base or revenue. And if you have any questions, we'll be in the Firebase Lounge to answer those. You can also tweet us with #AskFirebase.
Yeah, and thank you all for coming today. Remember, this is a beta, so we actually do have a discussion group that you can join. There's also, our website should be up right now. So if you go just to the Firebase landing page, you should be able to access predictions. We have the docs, we have the recipes of the success stories documented there as well. So you can enable predictions for your app today and start experimenting with it. We'd love to hear from you, so please do connect with us on the discussion group. We've launched a beta because we felt the product is strong and ready for you to use, and we'd love to work with you on what are the case studies and the features you'd like to see more of in the app. So hoping you all will give it a try and come talk to us about it.
Awesome.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.